Unexpected love revealed. How a rich woman's blind date transformed with a single dad mechanic. Charlotte paced her immaculate office on the 40th floor, the shimmering skyline of Chicago framed by glass walls. Acclaims, bonuses, promotions, her success seemed unassailable. Yet beneath the glossy veneer of her executive lifestyle, an unsettling emptiness gnawed at her. The lavish parties, the designer dresses, the constant applause felt hollow. She wore her achievements like armor, but isolation lurked beneath. Dinner chats with colleagues veered to predictable small talk, leaving her hungry for something real. Her friends noticed the cracks in her seemingly perfect life. They gathered over cocktails, exchanging worried glances and whispered suggestions. A blind date with Jake, a single dad and mechanic from the suburbs, was proposed, something raw and real, far removed from her high society cocktail circuit. She hesitated. Could connecting with someone from a vastly different world excavate the loneliness buried beneath her polished life? As she pulled into the diner parking lot, a part of her hoped for disaster, anything to keep from confronting herself. Inside, the warmth of sizzling burgers and laughter enveloped her. Jake turned out to be everything she didn't expect. His rough hands animated his stories about Emma, his daughter. He spoke with genuine warmth, radiating a resilience that was a stark contrast to the stale conversations she'd grown accustomed to. Each laugh from him felt like warmth against a harsh winter wind. But as Jake described Emma's vivid imagination, a chill crept into Charlotte's heart. Their lives felt starkly misaligned. She could almost hear her upscale friends' dismissive comments about just a mechanic, as if Jake didn't belong in a narrative that needed a well-tailored suit. The ache of realization how far removed she'd become from authenticity gripped her. Did her world offer any substance at all? Before the tension between her burgeoning feelings and her reality could unravel into clarity, Jake's laughter was punctured by a mutual friend strolling in, casual and mocking. "Charlotte, is this your date? A mechanic? Wow." The words landed like a lead weight in her gut, igniting a fire of embarrassment. There it was, the abyss between their worlds widening with each beat. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Tension coiled tighter as Charlotte shifted in her seat, caught in the crossfire of societal expectations and her unraveling desires. "Jake, what do you think?" she asked, her voice strained. She fought against the rising tide of doubt threatening to swallow her words. The authenticity he displayed shimmered, a balm she hadn't known she needed. But fear clawed at her insides. What if this connection exposed her to the whispers she dreaded? What if stepping into his world shattered what little shreds of image she clung to? The balance of comfort against authenticity wavered at the edge of her mind. As impatience turned to desperation, she pressed further, confronting him, unveiling her internal chaos. Jake shared fragments of his struggle, his vulnerability pulling her closer yet igniting an internal storm within. In the swirl of laughter and unexpected honesty, Charlotte stood at the abyss of a life-altering decision. The clock ticked toward the end of the night, and with it, the familiar shadows of her privileged life loomed. Reflecting on her choices, she realized this was a moment that could redefine belonging or cement her place in comfortable solitude. The tension peaked as Jake's voice trembled with unease, leaving her standing before an emotional cliff, longing for the leap the moment demanded but terrified of the fall. The atmosphere that surrounded Charlotte shifted like sand beneath her feet as she grappled with the weight of Jake's vulnerability. The earnestness in his voice contrasted sharply against the mockery they had just endured. A swirl of emotions sent her mind racing. Should she cling to the safety of societal norms or embrace the authenticity Jake represented? "Who do you want to be, Charlotte?" She challenged herself silently, feeling the walls of her carefully crafted life pressing in. This was not simply a matter of choosing Seth over Jake, it was a crucible of self-discovery. The diner's bustling energy surrounded her, laughter blending with the sounds of sizzling food, yet she felt centered in a moment that bore no resemblance to her life before now. What if I chose to prioritize connection over reputation? This question became her mental anchor. Charlotte leaned forward, the tension of the night tightening around them like a noose. I think I just want to understand. What does it feel like? The question hung in the air. Vulnerability danced between them, igniting a stirring desire for authenticity as she awaited his response. Jake's brow furrowed, contemplating her inquiry. It feels like waking up each day and doing what you love, while knowing you have someone who believes in you. But it's not all sunshine. It comes with struggle, too. He paused, his voice softening. I don't have the luxury of pretending everything is perfect. I have a daughter depending on me. That's real. A rush of juxtaposition overcame Charlotte. She'd been living for accolades rather than honesty. The starkness of Jake's reality and the magnified world she inhabited seemed miles apart, yet here was an undeniable thread binding their experiences. It made her question the very fabric of her life choices. As the diner faded into background noise, she found herself reaching out, fingertips brushing against the edges of a decision that would irrevocably alter her narrative. She craved something richer than what she had achieved through hard work and ambition. Would you? The words teetered on her tongue. Would you ever take me to meet Emma? Surprise flickered across Jake's face as if her request shattered the weight of his usual guarded demeanor. Really? He asked, the hope in his voice palpable, softening the harshness of previous moments. I want to see this part of your world, she replied, resolving to dig deeper. It was both terrifying and exhilarating, exposing her to not just Jake, but challenging her perceptions of fulfillment. The notion of stepping into a single dad's life, grounding herself in authentic connections, was foreign territory riddled with untamed potential. A nervous laugh escaped Jake's lips. All right, but I might not be as glamorous as you're used to. Good, she said with unexpected conviction. I'm not looking for glamorous. The shared laughter felt like the unlocking of a hidden door, but Charlotte could sense the lingering doubt still casting shadows over Jake's expression. What are you thinking? She pressed, shifting the spotlight back to him. I'm wary. You come from a world I know nothing about. What if it's too different? His voice trembled with uncertainty, a far cry from the confident exterior he usually presented. This truth struck Charlotte deeply. We're all figuring things out. I felt lost for years, Jake. Maybe differences are what we need to bridge. The stirring of courage that brewed within her had the potential to reshape not only her relationship with him but also her very identity. Just as Jake began to respond, doubt clouded his eyes again, and the comfortable tension she felt moments ago began to dissipate. The stakes of what was unfolding became stark, a crossroads lay ahead, demanding clarity and transformation. The unease seeped back into their banter, drifting into the space between them, preparing to rupture the fragile connection they had been forging. Maybe I should just stay in my lane, Jake murmured, almost as if talking to himself, disengagement seeping into his tone. A wave of determination welled up within Charlotte. She couldn't let this slip away, not when an opportunity for genuine connection rested on the horizon. This was her moment to act, to choose presence over the shadows of her past. No, you can't. Not now, not when we've finally begun to understand each other. Let us embrace this. As her words hung heavily between them, Charlotte's resolve had ignited the potential for transformation. Yet, as the anticipation fluttered high in her chest, a thought grazed her mind: could she really step away from her past without losing parts of herself? The moment danced on the brink of revelation, but with unanswered questions gnawing at her resolve, she took a breath, ready to find out. The uncertainty of her professional life intermingled with the blossoming path of personal discovery left her in suspended animation, on the cusp of a new beginning just waiting to unravel. And as the weight of that moment settled, she could not shake the feeling that this venture into uncharted territory stood to challenge everything she had once loved, including the very image of herself she had crafted carefully. As Charlotte absorbed the tenderness in Jake's gaze, she felt the magnitude of her earlier words reverberate within her. Each heartbeat pulsed with the potential of change, yet a disquieting uncertainty whispered through her thoughts. Leaving behind the shell of her former self was daunting. Would she even recognize herself in this new landscape she was so eager to enter? The warmth emanating from Jake filled the air between them, contrasting sharply against the cool tremor of trepidation coiling in her stomach. What was she truly hoping to gain? Charlotte's reflection each morning had revolved around appearances, achievements, and boxes to tick off in her life plan. Jake's reality painted a different picture, one marked by struggle but also by raw emotions and connection. What if I don't fit in? The question slipped from her lips before she could stop it. Jake studied her, and the concern in his eyes transformed into empathy. You might surprise yourself. Sometimes, it's in the unfamiliar where you find parts of yourself that have been dormant. The weight of his insight struck a chord. Had she truly been dormant? She pondered the question, realizing that her career success had seemingly overshadowed her truest desires. The more she reflected, the clearer it became. She hadn't just lost her footing. She had misplaced pieces of her soul in the endless pursuit of societal validation. I've built this life, Jake, she confessed, each word unraveling the tightly wound threads of her identity. But I'm starting to think that it might not be as fulfilling as I imagined. I understand, he replied softly, leaning in. But life isn't meant to be a perfectly curated gallery. It's messy and real. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready for the mess. The challenge lingered like dust motes in a sunbeam, begging her to consider diving headlong into uncertainty. She had spent years crafting a pristine image, only to find that it stood as a barrier rather than a safe harbor. For the first time, the idea of vulnerability felt less like a threat and more like an invitation. Could she finally allow herself the luxury of being raw, unfiltered, and yes, messy? The image of Emma, young and open-hearted like the fresh blossoms of spring, loomed in her mind. She desired that innocence, that desire to explore life anew. If she truly wanted to engage with Jake's world, it was vital to embrace that rawness alongside him. With newfound clarity, Charlotte's fingers tightened around the edges of the table, like grasping the roots of the earth she wished to soil herself in. You're right, I need to explore. What have I got to lose besides the facade? A smile broke across Jake's face, illuminating the contours of relief and gratitude etched in his features. There's strength in that acknowledgement, Charlotte. Admitting where you want to grow is half the battle. The diner around them faded, reduced to mere scenery as the emotions churned within. A tiny voice of fear crept back in what if it didn't work? All eyes would be on them, magnifying any flaws in this new alliance. The bright lights of her old life would dim, leaving her vulnerable and exposed. Yet, a deeper voice countered, spurring her resolve. What was love without the risk? Love wasn't merely an escape but a challenge, a pushing and pulling that sculpted a bond. As they lingered in that moment, the weight of possibility hovered, heavy with unspoken promises. Both were standing on the precipice, a leap into authenticity and genuine connection. Let's make a plan, Charlotte affirmed, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and fear. How about I meet Emma this weekend? Really? Jake's surprise was palpable, yet his expression shifted quickly into a warm beam of pride at her submission to vulnerability. Yes, I want to see your world, all of it including your daughter, she declared, resolute. It wasn't simply about seeing Jake's life, it was her conscious choice to embrace the messiness of real connections, possibly even love. But in that declaration lay a new conundrum: what would happen when she stood face to face with Emma? Would she see the ghosts of her own childhood beneath the innocent laughter? Or would she uncover a deeper understanding of herself through a child's gaze? With anticipation thrumming in her veins, Charlotte sensed she was bound for a confrontation much greater than herself, one that would force her not just to reassess her present but also to challenge her past. And as thoughts of Emma mixed with visions of the new life stretching ahead, Charlotte realized one pivotal truth: the moment had come to confront her own fears, both for what she might find in Jake's life and for what untapped potential lay within her. Could she truly redefine herself against the backdrop of such profound connection? The answer, tinged with uncertainty, felt closer than ever. Charlotte's heart raced as she drove towards Jake's home, a cacophony of doubt and determination thrumming through her. Each turn brought her closer to a world she craved yet feared. What if she encountered pieces of herself that had long been buried, overshadowed by ambition and the need for approval? As she parked outside the modest house, the facade presented a contrast to her carefully curated life. This home, marked by its welcoming front porch and the vibrant garden, whispered of warmth and unpretentiousness. It was a stark reminder of the authenticity she had pursued all her life yet never fully embraced. Deep breaths filled her lungs, pushing back the tide of anxiety. She kept repeating Jake's words in her mind. Sometimes, it's in the unfamiliar where you find parts of yourself that have been dormant. With every syllable that echoed, a sense of courage began to blossom. Today wasn't just about meeting Emma, it was about stepping into a space that dared her to reveal her true self. As she stepped onto the porch, she glanced at her reflection in the polished surface of the door. Would this new image, casual, unguarded, yet unsure, be the version of herself that Jake favored? As she knocked, the immediate surge of fear made her hesitate. Doubt clouded her resolve. What if Emma saw through her, noticed the layers of pretense she had built over the years? Jake opened the door, his smile instantly easing the tension bubbling within her. "You made it." There was no pretension in his greeting, only genuine delight. The warmth of his presence enveloped her, and she stepped inside, momentarily forgetting the external pressures that had accompanied her. Emma, a bright-eyed girl, appeared moments later, curiosity brimming in her gaze. "Hi," she chimed, her innocent energy radiating a contagious excitement. Charlotte knelt, meeting the child at eye level, and felt drawn to the uncomplicated joy reflected in those youthful eyes. "Hi, Emma. I'm Charlotte," she said softly, offering a smile that she hoped appeared genuine. As they exchanged a few pleasantries, Charlotte found herself enchanted. Emma's laughter rang freely, unblemished by doubt. Yet, with every smile shared, Charlotte realized that she was treading the fine line between involvement and detachment. She savored Emma's innocent questions about her life in the city, evoking memories she had long shelved away. But in the quiet moments, she felt her heart race with fear. Had she made the wrong decision? Jake caught her eye across the room, a reassuring smile settling on his face. In him, Charlotte found an anchor, yet a part of her wrestled with what it meant to forge this connection. Was she strong enough to embrace the messy unknown of nurturing a bond forged in authenticity when everything in her history screamed against vulnerability? The afternoon unfolded like a delicate petal blooming. Yet the deeper Charlotte ventured into this new space with Jake and Emma, the more she sensed their world demanding a version of herself that she was uncertain could exist. Each laugh, each glimpse of Emma's unreserved joy, peeled back the layers of her conditioned self. She felt the weight of her past clashes with the prospect of what lay ahead, a chance to rewrite the narrative that had defined her. But could she? "I think we should bake cookies together," Emma piped up, her enthusiasm cutting through Charlotte's ruminations. Baking a simple act yet laden with symbolism. For the first time, Charlotte thought about blending ingredients and flavors, and the potential magic that could arise from spontaneity and trust. Would she allow herself to mix her past with this unfamiliar sweetness? "Sounds perfect," Charlotte replied, determination forging through uncertainty. As she stood before the baking supplies, a sense of agency washed over her. This could be a moment of creativity, a chance to claim her identity within this beautiful mess. With flour dusting the countertops, Charlotte navigated the moment entirely on instinct, a refreshing, unfettered experience absent from her meticulously planned life. The kitchen became a shared laughter-fueled space, shivering with promise and transformation. Yet in the quiet corners, her internal dialogue buzzed. As flour rained down, she could feel the shadows of her past whispering fears. Would she be strong enough to build this bridge? The path before her unfurled with the potential of not just love but personal revelation. Just as the cookies began to rise in the oven, a distant sound punctured the atmosphere, a phone ringing sharply, a reminder of the life Charlotte had just begun to untangle. She glanced at Jake, who looked momentarily concerned. Was something about to disrupt their joyful gathering? With anticipation and unease tightening her chest, Charlotte confronted her next challenge, aware that the true test of her resolve was not just with Emma or Jake but within herself. Could she endure whatever storm was brewing, or would the past pull her back into the shadows she sought to escape? The moment felt heavy, fraught with potential upheaval. The phone's shrill ring cut through the air, pausing the laughter and anticipation. Jake glanced at his phone, a flicker of worry tracing his features. Charlotte felt the air shift within her, a sudden change from the warmth of the kitchen to the chill of uncertainty. "Excuse me for a moment," he said, stepping away. It felt like a small chasm opened up in the space he left behind. Charlotte's heart sank slightly, the comfort of connection retreating. She looked down at Emma, whose innocent eyes sparkled still, oblivious to the tension rising. Yet, in that brief moment of solitude, Charlotte sensed the familiar tendrils of doubt creeping back in. Her mind raced. Would Jake's call lead to a new responsibility, a potential engagement with realities that had once lauded her ambitions? Or something worse, a reminder of the facade she had conjured and the person she feared returning to? She felt stripped bare, vulnerable in a way she had long since feared to confront. "Do you want to play while we wait for him?" Emma suggested, pulling Charlotte from her spiraling thoughts. "Of course. What do you want to play?" Charlotte replied, doing her best to mask her inner turmoil. It was a feeble attempt, yet the simplicity of the request felt like a lifeline. The child lit up, ushering Charlotte into a world of make-believe that felt alien yet necessary. They set up a small, imaginative bakery with Play-Doh and plastic utensils, mimicking the joy of baking cookies they had just embarked on. Charlotte found herself engaged in the world Emma crafted, her laughter mingling with the light, creating a barrier against the chaos still echoing from the phone call. As Charlotte shaped the dough with Emma, she recognized how the little girl's innocence reminded her of the designs she'd lost in her pursuit of high-stakes success. The warmth that had filled the room returned, but an undercurrent of uncertainty persisted. The thought of Charlotte retreating into rigidity and perfection lingered, igniting a desperate need to dig deep. Why was she stuck in this cycle of anxiety and pretense? Suddenly, Emma trotted over to the window, her attention drawn to something outside. "Charlotte, come. Look at the dog next door." In that moment, Charlotte's gaze followed Emma's and encountered an unexpected sight. A young golden retriever bounded through the grass, clumsily yet exuberantly chasing its own tail. The sheer joy radiating from the dog was intoxicating, a raw display of freedom without the weight of expectation. Charlotte felt a shift stir within her. There was wisdom inherent in that puppy's antics life could play out in unstructured beauty. It dawned on her that she could relinquish the burdens she carried, being free to revel in imperfections and lessons learned through laughter and authenticity. With a sudden burst of inspiration, she turned to Emma. "How about we name our bakery after the dog?" "Yeah. We should call it Positive Treats," Emma exclaimed, clapping her hands. Charlotte laughed genuinely, the name echoing her newfound resolve. She felt the past's grip loosening as she engaged, embracing thoughts that contradicted every polished image she maintained. Instead of fighting to live up to expectations, she could celebrate spontaneity with a little girl who saw the world through a lens of imagination. Just then, Jake returned, a mix of relief and concern painted on his face. "Sorry about that," he murmured, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Charlotte caught a glimpse of something deeper there, perhaps a moment of vulnerability, a reminder they were both stepping into the unknown. "Emma and I are opening a bakery called Positive Treats," Charlotte declared, an uncontrollable smile lighting up her face. Jake chuckled softly, but Charlotte could sense a shift in him as well. If she could step forward, embracing her vulnerability, would he feel liberated enough to shed his own layers? Yet just as the euphoria began to settle around them, the phone rang again, echoing ominously in their freshly crafted moment of joy. "I better get this, Jake," said, anxiety returning to his demeanor. Charlotte's heart drummed as anticipation filled the air once more. Would the life she was choosing to embrace survive this next test? She pulled Emma closer, their laughter ringing louder than the phone, but the unease clung tightly. The storm brewing outside felt personal. How would they navigate this world of connection, honoring their truth, when an unresolved past continuously threatened to unravel it? Just then, Charlotte caught a fleeting look from Jake, a fleeting acknowledgement that the next conversation once again could redefine everything. Charlotte watched as Jake flipped his phone over, his expression hardening as if he had just waved away the remnants of a candid moment. It was unsettling to see how quickly their light-hearted atmosphere could dissolve into uncertainty. She tried to maintain her composure, but the thought of his call loomed over her like a storm cloud, threatening to rain down doubts and fears. "Do you think the dog is fast?" Emma asked, her innocent voice slicing through the thick tension. Charlotte's heart clenched. The child had no idea of the internal tumult swirling around her. "Very fast," Charlotte replied, managing a smile. "But I bet it's even faster when it's happy. Like us." Emma beamed, oblivious to the depths of Charlotte's contemplation. The simplicity of the thought sparked a flicker of resolve within her. She longed to catch a glimpse of that joy, the carefree kind that the dog embodied. The desire to channel that spirit began to overshadow her worries about Jake and whatever decision was rendering him withdrawn. What if this fear was as unfounded as her past expectations? Charlotte decided then that she, too, would anchor herself in that exuberance. If they could brainstorm a bakery name, she could ignite a flame of creativity that would drown out the rest. "Let us plan our menu. What treats should we make?" Emma's eyes widened with enthusiasm. "Cookies. And cupcakes. And dog-shaped cookies. Dog-shaped cookies it is." Charlotte laughed, her spirits lifting. Their imagination ignited new possibilities that made her own dreams feel tangible for the first time in ages. She pulled the colorful crayons from Emma's art supplies, and together, they sketched out potential recipes. As they filled the page with illustrations of whimsical desserts, Charlotte couldn't contain the swell of enthusiasm building inside her. Each drawing was a new layer of her identity peeling away from the tightly wound shell of her professional life. She found herself questioning how she could merge her love for baking and creativity with her career ambitions. Why had she ever felt the need to compartmentalize so strictly? In the back of her mind, she felt Jake's presence linger, his conflicting emotions a contrasting backdrop to the hopeful vibrancy radiating from her new venture with Emma. "Charlotte, can I taste some of the cookies?" Emma chirped, suddenly hungry from their brainstorming session. "Of course, but we have to create them first." Charlotte replied playfully, realizing it had been far too long since she had allowed herself to dream and act without restriction. The very essence of what it meant to create, the anticipation, the mystery, the joy, was what she missed in her high-pressure world. Charlotte's heart warmed as they plotted the flavors: chocolate chip, peanut butter, and even a canine-friendly recipe to honor their furry friend. The process felt sacred. It was a silent declaration of her commitment to nurturing not only her ambitions but the deeper aspects of herself that had long been buried. Suddenly, Jake rejoined them, his demeanor slightly more relaxed but still shadowed by the call's implications. "Sorry about that," he said, the softening of his voice gently puncturing the buoyancy in the air. "I didn't mean to leave you two hanging." "Oh, we were just planning our food truck," Emma declared with wide eyes, as if they'd concocted the greatest secret in the world. Jake's brows raised in genuine interest, a break in his heavy mood. "A food truck? That's ambitious." Charlotte seized the moment, gripping the paper with their menu sketch. "Not just any food truck, positive treats. Our dog-themed bakery." The glimmer in Jake's eyes shifted something in her tidal wave of emotions. "That's brilliant. I love it," he said, stepping closer to survey their designs. As they exuberantly shared the ideas, Charlotte felt a warmth spreading from his approval, a reassuring acknowledgement that her dreams were valid. Yet, while Jake's excitement pulsed through her, initially comforting, the question loomed: if he could embrace this, what other facets of their lives would he be willing to explore? But before she could dwell on that revelation, the phone rang again, an unwelcome intrusion hauntingly familiar to their chemistry. Jake glanced at it, his face folding into indecision. Charlotte swallowed hard, her heart drumming against her chest. The phone seemed to amplify the shadows lurking in the corners of her newfound happiness. What awaited on the other end? That curiosity twisted her stomach in knots, a reminder that the moment of truth was still glistening on the horizon, waiting to reveal its unwelcome secrets. Would their creativity flourish, or would outside pressures carve into this nascent dream and quench her spirit once more? The ringing sliced through the moment like glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. Charlotte's heart raced as Jake hesitated, his gaze flickering between the phone and her like a pendulum caught between two desires. The weight of his choice felt palpable. The exchange of their dreams seemed to teeter on the precipice of unresolved tension. "Do you want to answer it?" she asked, her voice instinctively softer, betraying an unexpected urge for him to engage with her rather than retreat into the same cloistered attitude that had started to frustrate her. He rubbed a hand over his mouth, a gesture she recognized as a tell of his uncertainty. "It might be important," he said reluctantly, the words coiling in the air like smoke. The weight of the call hovered, and she sensed a barrier rising between them again, one built from the uncertainties of his life, one that felt heavier than the aspirations she was nurturing with Emma. He might need you, she thought, then questioned whether her own dreams could withstand such layers of stress. But a flicker of stubborn resolve surfaced. If she was to nurture positive treats, perhaps she needed to confront what had been pushed to the back of her mind for too long, her own needs, ambitions, and desires intertwined with his. "Let us talk more about the business," she suggested, drawing Emma's attention back to their sketches. "What ideas do we have for the truck design?" Charlotte continued, despite feeling Jake's hesitation still hanging in the air. Emma's enthusiasm fueled her courage, pushing her to expand beyond her comfort zone. "I want it to be orange. With lots of doggy faces." Emma bounced in her seat, and Charlotte reflected on how pure and unfiltered the child's dreams were. There was something instinctual in that brightness that pulled her forward like a tether anchoring her resolve. While they brainstormed, Charlotte prioritized a vision engulfed in creativity, allowing thoughts of Jake's distractions to float away. She sketched furiously, her mind teeming with ideas of how to create a joyful culinary experience that honored the bond between dogs and their owners. The excitement surged through her, obliterating the gnawing doubts that had lingered. "Maybe we can have a doggy cupcake for the dogs to eat while the owners enjoy the cookies?" Emma suggested, eyes shining bright. The little girl's enthusiasm echoed through the room, filling the spaces that had felt empty moments before. Charlotte's heart lifted. "That's an incredible idea. Everyone loves a treat." The more they chatted, the more clarity emerged. She could feel her professional self testing the waters of personal freedom, daring to dream bigger than before. Jake stood quietly, half listening, tethered to the phone while Charlotte seized this moment as a personal turning point. It dawned on her that she was no longer simply at the mercy of outcomes. She could choose to carve her own path, regardless of Jake's storm. "Each treat could tell a story," Charlotte said, her voice strong and buoyant now. "We could even have special dog days themed on different breeds. It could become a fun community event." As she spoke, she observed Jake, his indecision still drawing shadows on his face even as there was a glint of pride in his eyes reflecting her passion. Perhaps he felt the stakes weren't just about their business idea but the dawn of change in their connection too. But his phone persisted, demanding his attention like an unwelcome intruder. A momentary flash of irritation flickered within her. Why had he locked himself away when they could be building something remarkable together? "Jake, is everything okay?" she finally asked, her voice steady but laced with genuine concern, knowing she could no longer ignore the division forming between their aspirations. Before Jake could respond, the call ended without a word uttered. The silence that followed felt heavy, but it also spurred Charlotte forward. "This is our moment, Jake. Before you answer again, let us vow to take this leap together." A tentative hope sparked between them, and as Charlotte's gaze locked onto his, she felt the undeniable pull to transcend not only her own barriers but potentially theirs as well. Jake opened his mouth to respond, but the tension lingered. Would they acknowledge this connection they were forging, or let distractions drown it? As Charlotte prepared herself for whatever lay ahead in that juncture, she realized a new resolve was forming within her, a strength built on confrontation and accountability. "Whatever happens next, we can work it out," she thought, bracing for Jake's response, a mix of nervousness and determination swirling within her. Would he finally choose to embrace the change they both needed? The call had ended, but the most significant conversation of their lives had only just begun. Charlotte steadied her breath, the silence thick with unspoken words hanging between them. The vibrant brainstorming session had all but halted, except for Emma's innocent chatter, which felt like a constant reminder of the ambition propelling Charlotte forward. "What did you mean by leap?" Jake finally said, his voice a quiet murmur but laced with an urgency that reached out to her. Charlotte could sense the gravity of this moment. It was a pivot point that teetered between their aspirations and a fragile connection begging to be nurtured. "I meant that we should take this idea seriously, together. It's not just about baking dog treats, Jake. It's about building something that reflects who we really are, but also who we want to become." She noticed his furrowed brow as his phone lay motionless in his hand, the weight of its inattention countered by the pulsating energy radiating from Charlotte and Emma in the space around them. It wasn't merely a call he had ignored, it was a symbol of the choice confronting him. "I guess I've been stuck in my own head a lot," he confessed, his voice unusually vulnerable. "I didn't know how to balance everything, my priorities, your plans, my responsibilities." A part of her wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm she felt forming, but another part recognized that digging deeper into their emotional entanglements might lead to an even greater unraveling. "What's important for you, Jake?" The question hung in the air, and she could see him weigh his response. "I want to care for my folks, but I also want something more for myself. I just didn't think starting a food truck would be the kind of escape I needed," he admitted, his gaze shifting to the window, where sunlight flickered between the branches of the trees outside, mimicking the flickering hope in Charlotte's heart. "Maybe this isn't solely about escape," she pressed, her heart racing as thoughts scrambled in her mind. "Maybe it's about creating a future that incorporates all of our lives. I mean, we could bring joy to others, create a community around this," and she caught herself, remembering the boundaries she needed to set for herself. Determination washed over her. She would not bury her ambitions for the sake of Jake's confusion. "I need clarity about my direction, Jake. I want this partnership, but it has to be meaningful for both of us." He blinked, realization dawning in his expressive eyes. "Are you saying you want to go forward, even if I can't figure my own life out?" "I am," she said resolutely. "But I want to know you're in this too. No more distractions. We'll support each other, but it has to be in the open. You need to commit to this just as much as I do." As the words left her mouth, she felt a surge of exhilaration. It was a challenge but also a moment of empowerment. She was no longer vying for Jake's attention but rather demanding reciprocity. The fear that once bound her was now unraveling, and in its place, a fierce courage emerged. "I can't promise I'll have all the answers," Jake replied, but there was a softening in his demeanor, a glint of hope flickering in his eyes. "But I can promise I'll try. Maybe this is our leap." Emma leaned into the interlude of adult honesty, oblivious to the weight of their conversation but filled with vibrant intentions. "Can we make those cupcakes now?" she asked excitedly, turning back to the sketches with an energy that served as a balm to the tension thickening the air. Charlotte suppressed a smile, allowing herself to feel buoyed by the child's unwavering zest for the future. It reminded her that amidst uncertainties, simplicity and joy could still flourish. She and Jake could navigate their struggles, heal, and grow, but only if they committed to doing so together. "Okay, cupcakes it is," Charlotte said, enthusiasm threading through her voice. "And maybe we can test a few recipes tonight." "Absolutely," Jake added, the slightest smile breaking through his earlier hesitation. As they dove back into the sketches and ideas, Charlotte couldn't shake the feeling that this moment marked the beginning of something transformative for both of them, not just in their plans, but within themselves. Yet, just as hope crested, doubt crept in. Would Jake truly be able to reconcile his responsibilities with his desire to embrace this new path? Charlotte's heart danced with uncertainty, hoping for connection while fearing the fragility of the bond they were building. Then, the phone buzzed again, shattering her brief sense of optimism. Jake glared at the screen, conflicted, then met Charlotte's eyes, searching for a cue. What would he choose this time? Would he answer the call and potentially slide back into his complicated world, or was he ready to embrace the uncertainty of the journey they both needed? The moment hung in limbo, tightening around them as Charlotte braced for whatever decision he would make next. Jake hesitated, his thumb poised over the screen, a moment suspended in time that wrapped around Charlotte like a tightening noose. As a single thought raced through her mind, what did he want? The other echoes of her ambitions started surfacing too, chasing fleeting whispers of doubt. She clenched her fists, reminding herself that she had taken a leap, and the first step had to be firm. "Jake," she said softly, but with urgency, "it's your choice. I want you in this, but I can't have you half-heartedly committed." The vulnerability in her voice seemed to break through his uncertainty, even if just for a moment. He dropped his gaze to the shimmering screen, his indecision slowly morphing into something resolute. But would it be enough? "Let us just make those cupcakes," he said finally, his voice steady even as his eyes flickered between his phone and her. It was an answer devoid of definitive clarity, a step without commitment. Yet, it was a step nonetheless. Charlotte felt a sense of relief wash over her, but with it came a pang of disappointment. There was always the fear that she might just be settling too soon, accepting gestures that lacked full intention. Still, she swallowed the growing knot in her throat. They turned their attention back to Emma, who was flipping through their sketches with delight, and for that moment, the atmosphere lightened. "Okay, Emma," Charlotte said, feeling the warmth of her smile pushing stubborn doubt aside. "Let us whip up a few exciting flavors. How about peanut butter bacon cupcakes?" "Yes. And we can add sprinkles," Emma exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious, making the tension ease a bit. As they began gathering ingredients, Charlotte watched Jake's face transform from uncertainty to focus. He engaged with Emma, cracking jokes and leaning over the counter to assist. Seeing him interact like that, she felt something shift within her, a recognition that perhaps the connection was beginning anew even if slowly. Throughout their culinary adventure, laughter and playful banter flowed freely, the air thick with the sweet smell of sugar and possibilities. But as Charlotte measured the flour, her thoughts lingered on the weight of the unresolved questions. Did Jake's attempts at engagement satisfy something deeper in him, or was he merely appeasing the moment? Each playful poke from Emma made her heart swell, yet the underlying concerns about Jake's commitment gnawed at her, especially now that their dreams felt tied together. They baked, and then taste-tested, sharing cupcakes laced with playful messiness. But Charlotte's heart raced not from sugar, but from the proximity of Jake and the gravity of their connection. Emma devoured her creation, her tiny face lighting up like it was the most extraordinary treat ever made. At that moment, Charlotte understood, their endeavor was more than simply baking. It was about forging something enduring, not just within one another, but inside themselves. Later, as the kitchen began settling into a delightful chaos of sticky surfaces and flour dusted across the floor, Charlotte drew a deep breath and felt the courage bubble up again. "Jake," she ventured, seeking to peel back the layers once more. "Are you ready to confront what's next for us?" He paused, his sparkling eyes dimmed ever so slightly with the thought of her question. "I don't have everything figured out, Charlotte, but I'm willing to try." The honesty in his admission warmed her, yet she wondered if the weight of his hesitations would quash their potential. Charlotte contemplated how she would respond, feeling a critical realization crystallize within her. "Trying won't be enough if we don't dig deeper," she said. "We need to tackle fears together, not just avoid them." Just then, another buzzing broke the newfound calm. Jake's phone vibrated again, insistent and unmoving. He hesitated, glancing at the screen with a growing frown that cast a shadow on his features. Charlotte felt the tension spike in the pit of her stomach. Without saying anything, she could sense the pull of responsibility drawing him away. Would he answer this time, slipping back into his past laden with expectations, or would he stand firmly beside her, confronting the uncertainty that awaited them both? The answer lingered, weaving into the air between them as Jake hesitated once more, testing the waters of each possibility that hung heavy in the stillness. A soft tremor of hope and fear coursed through Charlotte as she awaited his choice. The direction of their journey hung perilously in the balance, teetering on a knife's edge, ready to plunge into the unknown. The phone buzzed insistently, a persistent reminder of Jake's reality bubbling just beneath the surface of their burgeoning creativity. Charlotte watched closely as he hesitated once more, the conflict etched deeply upon his brow. The kitchen had transformed into a sanctuary, filled with laughter and the delicious aroma of freshly baked treats, but the specter of his unresolved life loomed heavily in the air. "Jake," she urged gently, feeling the weight of the moment both amplify and still the bustling heart of the space. "We both deserve honesty, no more half measures." There was a firmness in her tone that broke through the cautious atmosphere. He nodded, his gaze drifting towards the phone before snapping back to Charlotte. "You're right. I can't keep lurking in indecision while we're trying to build something." The resolve in his voice ignited a flicker of hope within her, underscoring the progress they had made not just in their baking but in the depths of their connection. "What's your reality if you can define it?" she pressed, wanting to pull him deeper into the conversation. "The truth is," he began slowly, "I've been muddling through, fitting my life into a version suitable for others. I feared what stepping out of that box might mean. The past few months have felt like scaling a wall of confusion." He paused, frustration creeping into his expression. "I want to have this what we're building together, but I'm also scared about what it demands from me." Charlotte's heart tightened as she recognized the vulnerability behind his words. Her own fears echoed his, flipping like pages in a book she had long stopped reading. "We are building something, but it can't be built on insecurity. We have to confront who we are and what we want without hiding," she said, grounding her resolve. The air shifted between them, the tension thickening as the barriers began to dissolve. "And if that means addressing the things we've avoided, then we need to do it. We can't kid ourselves. Being a mechanic single dad, those are huge parts of who I am, but they've always seemed like burdens when mixed with the expectations of society," he admitted. "I don't want to be just where I've been. I want to confront my fears, head on." The weight of the moment pressed deeply upon Charlotte. She recognized a strength she had long yearned to discover within herself, and seeing that same strength arise in Jake sent a wave of excitement through her. This was the adventure she sought, the rawness and authenticity only moments of real connection could summon. "Then let us not let the phone or anything else hold us back. Let us make our leap into this unknown together," she encouraged, her earlier fears fading into the background. He nodded, and there was a glimmer of newfound understanding shimmering in his eyes. "Okay. Whatever it takes, I'm in. Like you said, let us confront our fears together." There was an electric shift in the room as this decision anchored them both in reality, resulting in rooted commitment blooming from honesty and vulnerability rather than expectations and masks. As they cleaned the flour-covered kitchen together and whispered plans for their future bakery, Charlotte felt a profound sense of relief. They were forging a new path, and the balance between excitement and trepidation invigorated her spirit. Emboldened after that exchange, she turned and looked at him directly. "Let us promise to take this leap together, not just with our bakery but with every aspect of our lives." "Absolutely," Jake replied, an encouraging smile illuminating his face. "I've been so caught up, but with you here, I know I've got a partner." He seemed lighter somehow, with the burden of indecision lifting as they connected. And as the realization dawned upon both of them, Charlotte couldn't help but feel an exhilarating rush of empowerment, relief flooding through her. This leap wasn't just about their professional dreams, it was a journey into their authentic selves, toward the depths of intimacy that real connection promised. The phone rang once more, but this time neither flinched. Perhaps it didn't matter. They had each other amidst the worries of the past. "Let it ring," she said with newfound confidence, grinning at Jake. "This is our moment." With that, they shared laughter, the warmth of camaraderie enveloping them as they continued their work in the kitchen, their imaginations flaring up with excitement and dreams, their fears vanishing into the echoes of their renewed commitment. As the last batch of cupcakes came out of the oven, they marveled together at the outcome, imperfectly beautiful, just like their partnership. At that moment, Charlotte realized how much she had grown, cradling an unwavering sense of purpose accompanied by the shared resolution they had crafted together. And in the journey that lay ahead, fraught with uncertainties but ripe with possibilities, Charlotte recognized she held many more achievements within her reach. Their bold leap into the future had begun, and that was just the beginning. Now was the time to grab hold of possibilities, create vibrant friendships, and embrace the definition of flourishing they would carve out together. So as a final thought echoed through her mind, she felt empowered to take control of her destiny rather than let it slip by unnoticed. This was her moment of triumph, her life rewritten through authenticity and courage. And as they stood side by side, contemplating all that they could achieve together, Charlotte took a deep breath, ready for whatever awaited them next. And if you, dear viewer, resonate with Charlotte and want to witness more stories of transformation and courage, here's what you need to do: subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, and let us know what you think. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Join us on this journey of love and transformation.